We're so glad that you decided to tune into the Church Rehab podcast. This episode has been brought to you by Kennedy Enterprises. Don't forget to subscribe and follow the podcast so you can be notified each time a new episode drops. Enjoy the podcast with our host, Pastor Michelle Kennedy of Embrace You Ministries. Thank you for watching and listening to another episode of Church Rehab. I am Pastor Michelle Kennedy, Master Life Coach, and the host of this amazing podcast. This podcast airs on all major platforms on first and third Fridays at 8 p.m. And if you would like to watch the interviews, they are available first and third Saturdays at 10:30 a.m. on the Church Rehab YouTube channel. So we have been doing a interview with Pastor Shamond Scales, and we're going to jump right in. Listen, if you did not hear the first episode, you want to go pause and go back and listen because you are going to be laughing. We share some very funny information. So we're going to jump right back in. So, let me ask you this. What's the largest congregation you've served?
As far as a pastor,
Yes.
um, at one point in time, we had gotten to about when I was in Jackson, especially early on, um about 1,000. We had got
Mhm.
to around about 1,000.
So, what was the hardest part of pastoring that many people?
Um, Delegation. Bishop Clarence McClendon told me something one time, and I didn't get it until I started. Um, I started having to figure out why the back door wasn't closed. He told me something. He said, if in order to preach to a multitude, you can't pastor one. And he showed me something very important. He was like, when you read scriptures, you see Jesus preaching to a multitude, but you see him only pastoring 12 men. And then those 12 men later on turn into the 72. And then that 72 turns into the 120. But Jesus, in order to really get his vision out, he wasn't trying to make sure the multitude got it. He was just trying to make sure that 12 of them had it good, and he delegated those 12 to do things. I think that the hardest part is you feel a separate responsibility to every single one of them. And if you do it that way, somebody's going to get the short end of the stick. And then you're going to feel as a pastor, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. This is why I think that in this time, you have to understand that, yes, you might be the lead pastor, but there are other people that God will have assigned that are part of the pastoral ministry.
Hmm.
You might be the pastor, but you're not the only pastor. I think as your church grows, God will send you pastors. As a matter of fact, when we see biblically, the ministry of the deacon was somebody that was assigned to assist the pastors or the elders of the church so that they could study, do whatever they need to do without having to cut their time off with God to deal with the everyday issues of the people. So it's really delegation, because after, when you come from small or come from medium, you're used to doing everything. You don't it, When you come from certain, especially when you come from a family that did church, you're used to doing every single thing. And that's probably going to be your downfall when you get too many people, because there's no way you're going to be able to do every single thing and manage that.
That is so true. I have because I'm so highly gifted, I've discovered in this last season of my life that everything you can do, doesn't mean you should do.
Hmm.
Uh, Even when it comes, and I think for me, our ministry is fully online, so we don't have like a whole lot of day-to-day
Hmm.
activities because we're fully virtual.
Hmm.
Um, so I find for me that struggle came when it came to business. Uh,
Okay.
I have several businesses, and at one point, I was working a full-time job and working full-time in my business.
Wow.
Here recently, the last 2 years, the Lord called me off my job. And I was just sharing with someone today, one of my coaching clients, I never had a desire to be a full-time entrepreneur. Like
Wow.
for me, that wasn't the goal.
Okay.
I loved my job. I was a fraud analyst for a major bank.
Okay.
I love my job. I had it down pat. I had been there longer than some of the managers, so like I was that go-to person, and um, I had learned how to balance my job and my business. And so when the pulling of the Lord was coming, and I decided uh, that I would take a sabbatical from work. I took a 12-week sabbatical to just try to run my job, run a business full time. And I remember sitting at home, and I heard the Lord say, "Burn up your plan B."
Mm.
And I was like, "So what?"
Hmm.
I always use my husband as my litmus test because I'll be like, "Well, Lord, I supposed to honor what he think,"
Right.
but
Right. Right.
him and God always be on one accord. I be like, "This just is not working for me anymore." So I'm like, I open up my phone and I'm about to text him to say, "Honey, the Lord told me," and my phone. I look down and he's calling me, and I'm like, "God, you really play
Here
too
we
much."
here we go.
So I answered the phone. I was like, I literally was in the process. Till she was like, "For real?" He was like, "So what's up?" And I said, "The Lord told me to burn up my plate." But he was like, "I knew I was waiting on you." I'm like,
Mm-mm-mm.
I'm like, why you? That was not how this conversation was supposed to go. But in becoming a full time entrepreneur, that's where my struggle came in, being able to delegate. And
Okay.
I'm such a relationship person
Right.
that for me it's important. Like for one of my sayings is I want relationship over revenue, because
Okay.
if I build the right relationship, revenue will come. It
That's good.
becomes a byproduct.
That's good.
So delegating is, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But in this season, as a matter of fact, I'm coming out of this season, I have a larger personal staff now than I have ever had before. When I say I do it all, like I do all my graphics, I
Okay.
do everything. I have a degree in education, so I build the curriculum. I teach all the classes. I do all the trainings, and I'm grateful that now my board and my staff is like, okay, these are the things that we don't want you to do. These are the things that we want you to have other people doing, because I'm like, I ain't got to depend on nobody. Everything in my
Right.
business I can do. So you cut up, baby, I can teach that. I
Right.
wrote
Right. Right.
it. So delegation is major.
Mhm.
So let me ask you this. Have you suffered or dealt with anxiety, depression, or panic attacks?
Yeah, of course. I think everybody in leadership at a certain level has to deal with those kind of side effects of I think those are the side effects of leadership, to be honest. I've never met um especially gifted people. And it's
Mm,
because we perform at such a high level, and when I say perform, I don't want to put that in terms of that it is a performance, but and because this is just not relegated to just somebody that does something in church, but anybody that performs at a high level, most of the time, um, the come down is always depression. If you notice, most gifted people, it's like like when you see them really. Oh man, it's amazing. Most of the time that come down, and the reason why most of them go so hard in performances is it's like it's an escape from reality.
Mhm.
I can remember one Sunday. This was um this had to be uh maybe my second year pastor, and I can remember it was one particular Sunday God moved, and I mean it was just powerful. It was powerful, and literally I sat in my chair in the pulpit for like 2 3 hours, like 2 3 hours, and everybody else was gone. And the reason why was I didn't want to go home because the pulpit, like, I felt comfortable there. It bears no pain. I felt comfortable there. So I would say that anybody that has any kind of high performance lifestyle always has to watch anxiety and depression because it's the come down. It's the come down. And just for those that are connected to somebody that's at a high performance, always cover them in prayer when you see them do something great. Like when you see them, like, oh, you really sang today, you really preached today, you really did a good job doing this, you do this. When they come down off of that, always cover them in prayer, because most of the time that come down is when the devil meets them. And he normally comes in and I mean, why do you think you see people that close $1 million deals, or we've seen singers and different people that are on drugs,
Mhm.
and you're like, man, like, how are they doing that on drugs? It was the come down. It was the not knowing how to cope at that high level. So that's I believe that's something that's kind of normal.
So so there's two things I want to say about that because I'm reading a book titled The Mountain Is You, and it's a
Okay.
book that talks about overcoming self-sabotage.
Okay.
Um in the book talks about our upper limits.
Okay.
So as a performer, I've had those really highs and I've had those real lows. And in being busy and having people who depend on you, it's the time you miss in those lows.
Hmm.
Like when you are that low, it's like the people who are closest to you, like your family and your children, your friends, they don't get
Yeah.
to experience you.
Absolutely.
They only get to see to experience you on that high. They don't get to experience you as being normal.
Yes.
The book, it talks about an upper limit, and our upper limit is the level of success and the level of wins that we are comfortable with having.
Right. Right.
After a major win, a big performance, we self sabotage the moment
Hmm.
to bring ourselves down
Yes.
to that level of comfort.
Hmm.
It wasn't until today that I discovered um, that that's where my lows had been coming from.
Hmm.
Because you're performing, and you are in a the crowd, the cheers,
Hmm.
um, that builds your dopamine, your
Absolutely.
adrenaline, your all of that is pumping. And then once that is gone, if you don't have the right picture of you, you try to bring yourself down because that person who you go out and perform as, oftentimes it's not the person you are when you're
That's
home.
right. That's
Like
right.
you will go and you will preach and tear the walls down, and then your insecurities that have not been dealt with would tear you down when you get home. So that's where the imposter syndrome really plays a big role because
Yep.
you'll feel like after a while somebody's gonna realize that that
They're gonna
person
pick up on it.
that I am on the stage is not the person. And so in the book, she talks about raising your upper limit, raising the level of success that you are comfortable with, raising the level of achievement that you personally are okay with. And you do that by not moving so quickly to what's next.
Mhm.
You do that by building a memorial to remember that success. And
Yeah.
oftentimes, as people who are successful, we've been taught that you're not supposed to think of yourself highly.
Mhm.
You're supposed to esteem others over yourself, which does not mean that you are supposed to dim who you are.
Right.
So as we when you are able to raise your upper limit, like your downs don't last as long because you are comfortable
Right.
with
Right.
the success.
Absolutely.
I was like, oh my God, because not only have I seen them with Antonio, I've seen them with the pastors and the executives who I coach. They have these drops,
Hmm.
but no one has said, I know what that is, and this is how you can better manage it.
Right.
Um, I've suffered with depression and anxiety, and I remember the last bout I had that was really bad was in like 2019. It may have been 2018 or 2019, one of the two. Um, and I was spiraling. And so I sleep a lot. Um, I gorge out on junk. Um, my attitude shifts, but I'm a functioning depressant. Like everything I'm required to do, I'ma still be able to do it.
Right.
But the moment I get home, I'm gonna be so depressed that I'm going straight to sleep. And so when I was coming out of it, I remember the Spirit of the Lord saying that I needed to share with my husband what my spiraling looked like, because people look at you and because you're still able, it's like the person who's the functioning alcoholic. Like they can literally drive a truck, uh, unload pallets, and do everything intoxicated because they have trained themselves,
Right.
even in being intoxicated, to do it. That's the way I was in my depression. So I shared with my husband, I'm like, when you see this and you see this and you see this and you see this, no matter how well I look, I'm in trouble.
Hmm.
So becoming self-aware of what those lows look like and then being able to then tell those who are around us what that looks like is a game changer.
It is. Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolute game changer. Absolutely.
So let's see. This my last is really deep question, and then we'll talk about some fun stuff. So
Okay.
um I have my staff call it Michelle-ism, maybe like the little things I say.
Okay.
So I have this concept about the shepherd who gets sheep bitten,
Okay.
um, the leader who gets hurt by someone they lead.
Okay.
Have you experienced it, and how did you manage it?
Um. Absolutely. And I think that that comes with it. I think that this is the one job that you don't get the opportunity to treat people like they treat you. I think
Mhm,
that it's one of the things that I think that you are in the wrong profession. Pastoring is not for you. Even leading people is not for you if you have not factored in how helping people could hurt you. And you have to be okay with understanding your positioning, and also um know that it's going to take tough skin. I think about in my lifetime, I'll never forget this. and this is years ago. I was trying to be a good pastor. Uh, this young lady at my church had she was in jail trying to get off. She had been in there. They was about to give her a couple of years or whatever. And to be honest, I don't know if she was guilty. I don't know. I just being a good pastor, I was there. And I remember being there pleading with the judge. The trial court case, it was like more than one day. It was like a major thing. And she got some time, not as much time as I think she should have. So the judge, gave her some mercy, but she still had to serve some time. I didn't see her for some years. I saw her maybe a couple of years later at a grocery store, and I was like, oh my God, you're out. We had, you know, put so much energy making sure, putting money on the books, all this stuff. And she was like, yeah. And she was like, I want you to meet my new pastor. This is the same city. I want you to meet my new pastor. And, I think y'all would like each other. And somebody was with me and they was like, that don't make you mad. And I said, that comes with it. I said, because I have to check my heart if I helped her only to keep her subscription to my church. That means that I did it for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that those because people gonna people, they gonna do things. You're gonna have people that's gonna take the church gonna raise them all kind of money, help them. You ain't gonna see them no more. You're gonna have people that are going to literally, you can correct them one time and they'll lie and spread things and say you did this and say you did that. It comes with it, and I think that you're called to it when you're able to. And it's not that it does not hurt you as a human. It's just you've got tough skin in the spirit to be able to understand that, hey, no matter what happens, I'm called to strengthen, as the scripture says, what remains. So I think that as a leader, you have to understand that if you are the leader, God's gonna give you strength to muster up from somewhere. You ain't gonna know where it's coming from, but God gives you, and I believe that's how you know you're the leader. It's not necessarily the person. I always say this: it's not necessarily the person that's the most gifted, is the most talented. The leader normally has the toughest skin. It's the person that, because you can't treat people. And this is the thing: if that young lady came back to my church, I would have had the obligation to love her like nothing ever happened, because it comes with it. It comes with it. And um, I guess sometimes I can be a little hard when it comes to that, because I want us to remember, like, we didn't just sign up for the glitz, the glamour, and the microphone. No, we signed up to literally to go through hurt for people that will never show appreciation. It just comes with it. And that's why you better know that that ultimately God doesn't forget to your labor of love, because people will. Trust me. They will forget you. They will forget all about you and everything you did.
It's like so it's a difference between someone who's a shepherd and a pastor tainer. That's what I call them.
Okay, I love that. I
The
love that.
pastors that are entertainers,
I
yeah.
love it. Yeah.
They're fickle, like they don't have tough skin.
Right.
They lead from um oftentimes a unhealed place of pain.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they build up these walls and these insecurities and these rules and these regulations to try to keep people in line and in order so that they are not picking at those places.
Absolutely.
But what do you do with the offense of what people have done?
I think that's when um you have to take your own advice. I think that the Bible teaches us that the scripture says, physician, heal thyself. And I think that most of the time that as leaders, we bleed on the people when we actually should take a lot of that stuff into devotion. I think that you have to take that stuff in prayer. One of the things that I was talking about 2 weeks ago in my Bible study, I was talking about triggers. And I was talking about, you have to ask yourself why certain things bother you. Why? You think about this. You can have 100 people saying, well, let's say you can have 99 people just shouting, preach, preach. And you can have that one person that's looking at you crazy. And your mind will be, on that one person instead of the 99 that were receptive. You got to ask yourself a question. What's in me that was bothered by that one? What insecurity do I have that, listen, everybody else, you got one person may have said something bad about you online, just one, but you got everybody else that thinks something totally different. Why does the happiness of your ministry or where you are mentally is contingent upon that one person? You have to ask yourself why that is. And most of the time, there's an insecurity that has not been addressed, because clearly one bad apple ruined your whole tree. So my thing to deal with that is you have to not be afraid to confront your insecurities as a leader, and you have to be honest with yourself. Is it something that I need to work on, or is it just the nature of people? There's no way. Listen, if right now, if you go on Yelp or on like something that has reviews on a restaurant, you're going to see, I don't care how good the restaurant is, 5 star, 5 star, 5 star, 5 star, 5 star. And in one of those reviews, there's going to be somebody that says, my food was horrible. My food was cold. The waitress, the service was bad. And here's the thing. You got to use your common sense to say the rest of these 5 stars say that this is a regular place of excellence. Because if I go off one review, I'm never going to any restaurant, right? And if I'm the restaurant owner, I am looking at this and saying, well, if we just got one bad review or two bad reviews in hundreds of reviews that are great, we're doing fine. So I think that in order to deal with that and really kind of have a self-reflective moment in your devotional time, you got to ask God, deal with me in the area of my insecurities that has me always looking at the minor and making the major. That's you have some people, I know you as leading people that you go to encourage somebody and say, you did a great job. You did a great job. And that one person, or they don't feel like they got the applause or something like that. And then they question if they should do it ever again. And then you're looking at them like, what? Like, what? But that's the way insecurity works. It
Mhm.
magnifies it magnifies how you see yourself. Like that, that insecurity, that one applause, that one lack of applause, most of the time represents you in the room. Because you don't think you're that good, or you don't think you're that great. So even as pastors, listen, if you got 20 people that love you, care about you, and believe that you've been sent by God to care for their souls, don't let two that walked off or won't participate make you question what you're called to. You're always got more. My mother used to always tell me this to humble me. She said, "Son, it's never as good as it seems, but it's never as bad as it seems." And it kept me level headed. I would say, "Man, everybody's laughing at you," and she said, "Everybody, like everybody." No, it's you just allow your insecurities to magnify the negativity.
Listen, I'm in here bouncing because I'm about to run through this whole desk and this computer and everything. Like you have to be my child in some life because um I'm big about teaching people about triggers.
Mhm.
My minor in college was in sociology,
Okay.
um, and I've taken two life coach certifications. Um, but then the Lord deals with me on a high level of revelation that oftentimes I'd be like, what?
Hmm.
To only discover that then someone else says it. I'm gonna share these two instances. A couple of weeks ago, you preached and talked about the decision. I think that was the Sunday I was there.
Yes.
That was the topic of my very first Bible study for my ministry.
Wow.
And I shared my notepad with Victoria and I said, please read this
Hmm.
because it was parallel
Hmm.
to what you were saying because, like, you've got to be at a point that you make a decision that the way I am can't be the way I continue to be.
That's right. That's right.
And people don't realize when you are triggered, there is something biochemical that takes place.
Hmm.
Your amygdala, which is where your fight or flight resides, is activated when you're triggered.
Right.
Your frontal cortex is where your rationalization takes place. When you are triggered, your fight and flight takes over. It what they call it is hijacked. So
Right.
your ability to rationalize has been hijacked because your brain says that there is danger.
Right.
When we are triggered, our brain doesn't know if it's a physical or an emotional trigger. It just knows it needs to do something.
Hmm.
So oftentimes that something is us reacting to the trigger, and the trigger isn't what's happening, it's what has happened. And your mind remembered. See, the last time this happened.
Right.
So when it comes to our triggers, like when we start becoming more self-aware, then we can make a decision on how we're going to act.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that I had to do, because one of my triggers is rejection, and I dealt heavily with rejection.
Okay.
um and it's not because I wasn't good enough, but I've always suffered from rejection because I've been too good. I've
Okay.
always been the standard.
I understand.
Always been the mark. That's
Yep.
what you want to be. That so people have always rejected it. So um I had to create a trigger plan while not triggered.
Okay.
So when I am triggered, my mind will know what to do. So when I'm triggered, I train myself to pause because that pause stops me from reacting.
Right.
And then I ask myself, is this me or
Right.
is this them?
Yes. Yep. Hmm.
Asking myself that question releases the frontal cortex that does the rationalization and helps me to make a decision before deciding what to do.
Right.
When we start teaching people these types of things in church, like we'll have less incidents where people are bleeding on others because they're triggered.
Yeah. Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that Sunday when you were ministering and you were it was such a presence of deliverance because these were the things you got to make a decision.
Make a
You got to
decision.
decide to let go. You got to know that yes, God will do the work, but then you got to renew your mind. You
That's
and
right.
I was oh my God, that just
That's
blessed.
right. That's
Um,
right.
and then the second thing, and so you prophesied a word to me October, November last year. And you said that the Lord says give him a year. So what you were not aware of is I had already received one prophecy that said the Lord said you're getting ready to go into a consecration because He needs to do some work in you before you go to this next level. And the Lord had said to me, I need you to do less so that I can do more.
Wow. That's good.
And in the prophecy, you also said the Lord is saying do less, but you're trying to figure out how do I do less? You're trying to understand, well, how do I tell people I'm not going to do the stuff that I've always done?
Mm.
I started canceling major events
Wow.
I have every year. Like for 6 years, I did an event for Pastor Wives called the Crowned Affair, where
Okay.
bring them in, I shower them, I feed them, I give them gifts, I bring in speakers, and I do all the stuff. And my heart's desire is to always do it at no cost or very low cost to them as my gift to them,
Right.
because not many people give gifts to the
Right.
pastor's wife. And then I do an event around my birthday for 6 years called the Denim and Pearls, where it's usually 5 events in 3 days or 4 events in 3 days. I do something for the entrepreneurs, I do something for the coaches, I do an honorary gala where I honor people in the community, I give away awards and just all kind of stuff. And the Lord told me to do none of that.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
So when you begin to minister and say, you're trying to figure out how do I tell people I'm not, I mean, it was directly on point. Um, I said that to say, a few weeks ago, the Spirit of the Lord began to reveal and say, when I said, do less so I could do more, it wasn't so that I could do more for you. It was so I can do more in you.
Wow.
I've been on this 8 months inner child healing journey
Mm.
while
Wow.
I've been sitting, while I've been in this consecration time, and the Lord has He's mentally, emotionally, and spiritually healed me from things that I had shelved,
Wow. Wow.
things I had just taken and just put on the shelf, like um, sexual abuse I had experienced, my mommy daddy issues I had that uh the things I resented, I realized were the exact same things I replicated in my children and
Wow.
the way I raised them. So when we seek the Lord, and as you said, we have to have the Lord to examine us. Like I went back to therapy.
Mm.
I have a mentor. I have several coaches. So in doing that inner work and dealing with those securities, oftentimes leaders don't pause enough to do so.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. 100% agree. You have to pause. You have to pause. I 100% agree.
Yeah. So I definitely want to thank you for the word that you shared,
Bless you.
because it
Wow.
was life changing. It was shifting. I could not have imagined being the person I am now. I made a post not too long ago on social media and said, I don't even know this person I'm becoming.
Wow. Wow.
I'm like, oh, is that you? Like,
Mm,
girl.
mm, mm, mm.
But I realized that for where he's taking me next, I had to go back and do the work to heal um, those broken pieces that didn't hurt but wasn't healed.
Wow. That's good. That's powerful. It's
Yes.
powerful.
So, in closing, what is your greatest accomplishment?
Oh, my family. I think that it- after uh after I retire or whatever, or quit doing this, they'll have another pastor. They'll go on with their life. Um, but there's gonna still be some people here with my last name, and yeah, keeping them together, keeping them. I think that's um, my greatest joy. And people that really know me know that I am a family person first. That's my life. That's what I do. I'm every day I'm their armor bearer. My kids, um, every morning I'm their assistant, taking them to school, doing whatever I had to do in the day. That's I believe is my greatest accomplishment. And being a husband to my wife, who is I wouldn't call her a secret weapon because she's not a secret. She's my weapon. I always make the reference in the church that she's a real pastor. So yeah, that's my greatest accomplishment is being a family man.
And my last question is Dr. Miles Monroe said you should be able to sum up your life's purpose in one sentence. My sentence is my purpose is to be to others what no one was to me. If you had to sum your life up in one sentence, what would that be?
You don't get what you deserve, you get what you fight for. That would be my sentence.
That's good. You don't get what you deserve, you get what you fight for.
Yep.
Pastor Scales, we want to thank you again for
Honor
giving us of your time, of your presence, because just your presence is a gift. How can our viewers and our listeners connect with you?
My social media handles, it's at Shamond Scales Senior, Facebook, Shamond Scales Senior. We're on YouTube. Um, Same thing on TikTok is at Shamond Scales Senior. Um, yeah, so hit me up, hit our church up, Inspire Church Jacks on all social media platforms. Is the same, Inspire Church Jacks, JAX. Of course, that those that are even not in the area, we have in-person service, but even those that are not in the area, we are online on all major platforms. And yeah, just would love to connect with anybody. We're just here to share the gospel of Jesus Christ, and just try to uplift and inspire as many people as we can.
Thank you. Thank you all again for sharing with us in another episode of Church Rehab. I am Pastor and Master Life Coach Michelle Kennedy. And again, this podcast has been brought to you by Kennedy Enterprises. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you subscribe to the channel, click the little bell because it'll notify you whenever new podcast episodes have dropped. Thank you again. Have a great day. Wow, what a powerful and inspiring episode that was. I hope you enjoyed listening to our guests today who shared their testimony of how God transformed their life and gave them new purpose. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to bring you these stories of hope and healing episode after episode of the Church Rehab podcast. Thank you for watching and supporting this ministry. I'm so grateful for your support and feedback. You know, this podcast is all about helping you heal from hurts and hangups that keep you from living your best life in Christ. We've covered some tough topics, but we've also had some fun and some laughter along the way. I hope you enjoyed learning something new, and feeling inspired. Until then, remember, embrace who God made you to be, and don't let anyone or anything stop you from shining your light. As the Bible says in Matthew 5 and 16, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good work and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Thank you again for tuning in to the Church Rehab podcast. Now, before we go, I enjoyed the podcast and it has been a blessing to you. Do two things for me. First, subscribe to the channel and leave a review. It helps us to reach more people to get the message of God's love and grace out to the world. Once again, thank you for your partnership and your prayers. Now go be the light.